A dream virtual game has emerged, providing an extremely realistic experience in a different world and a super smooth combat experience. Whether you are a warrior who craves magic, cultivates immortals, or a leisure and entertainment farmer, you can find your own fun here. An absolutely realistic virtual game, come and play. Behind the screen, Xia Yu travels to a different world to become a forced tenant farmer, but after a pursuit, he awakens the summoning system and smiles. My little players, come and help me work and farm, and explore the new world. Chapter 1, Invitations from a Different World. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In a spacious underground space, there was silence all around, except for an injured young man leaning against the wall, panting heavily. I didn't expect this to be the end of my world. Xia Yu smiled bitterly as he covered the wound on his lower abdomen, his face full of frustration. He was originally a social animal from another world, living in the personnel department of a large company, only seeking a stable job. But due to busy work, I accidentally fainted on the way home after working overtime all night. When I opened my eyes again, I arrived at this strange world. When Xia Yu first arrived, he was particularly excited. A different world. That's the protagonist's permanent residence in the novel. With his eloquent tongue, anything from white-haired lowly to black long straight imperial sister, even some excitement, vampire girlfriend, and Queen Medusa can all be included in his bag. Enjoying the beauty in your arms and adding fragrance to your red sleeves, isn't it beautiful? When Xia Yu started his grand career, he was immediately pushed back to his original form. He is just a tenant farmer in this foreign world, forced to rely on the nearby little night lord, guarding the thin fields for farming, and leaving no more than 30% of his food throughout the year, which is enough to barely survive hunger. More than 3 years have passed and nothing has been achieved. Today, I finally had the opportunity to go out and work hard, but those dog-headed people seem to have long eyes, accurately blocking their path and annihilating them. It can be said that they were extremely unlucky. Xia Yu also relied on some luck to escape into the dense forest amidst the chaos and accidentally fall into this underground space. This place is empty, with only a ray of sunlight leaking down from the interior of the space, landing on a faceless statue in the center. The statue of the goddess was carved lifelike, but her face seemed to have been chiseled away by life, empty and eerie. Just as Xia Yu's consciousness gradually dissipated and pain came from various wounds, a ding bell suddenly rang in his ear. The summoning system has been bound and comes with a free guide sprite. You can summon people or creatures from other worlds by consuming a certain population, currently available at 0/10, with the sound, a palm-sized ball of light slowly emerged from the shimmering pool beside it. She flew into Xia Yu's palm, revealing her true image. It turned out to be a finely carved jade fairy with a pair of transparent wings like cicada wings. She wore a green coat and had a cute face, like a teenage girl. Her voice was sweet, soft and cute, so I only heard her say it. "Your Excellency, you shouldn't have fallen here." After speaking, clusters of halos continued to gather on Xia Yu's body, allowing him to calm down. The bleeding wound on his body gradually stopped. Xia Yu looked at the fairy in front of him in surprise and asked, "Are you?" "I am a fairy sent by the Lord God, named Xiaoni, specifically to assist you in saving this world completely occupied by evil gods." As Xiaoni watched Xia Yu recover, she was overjoyed as she fluttered her wings up and down. However, Xia Yu could clearly feel that the healing halos had consumed Xiaoni's immense power, and the light clusters that initially enveloped her had all disappeared. Xia Yu struggled up and leaned against the rock wall, smiling bitterly. "I'm afraid I'll disappoint you. Currently, I even have survival issues. Everyone is from weak to strong, please don't worry, quickly summon powerful creatures from other worlds. It's just that you can only summon 10 people. It's really too few, you can only summon a creature like a little tree spirit," Xiaoni said in distress. Although Xia Yu is in an injured state, his eyes are still sharp. He could see Xiaoni's predicament, thinking that this little tree spirit would have no effect at all. At this moment, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration and inquired. If I summon ordinary humans, can I summon 10 people? It should be possible, but Lord God, are you sure? Ordinary humans who come to this world may receive a little blessing from the main god and a little bit of magical affinity, but they are too weak to even defeat the dog-headed person chasing you. Although a little tree spirit has no intelligence, it is still no problem crushing the dog-headed person. Xiaoni frowned adorably at Xia Yu's proposal and shook her head in resistance. Finally, she added. This is a world that none of the 90.9 warriors have saved. It is said that there are still brave warriors who have not achieved the death backtracking feat. Just be bold in your direction. Cough cough. They won't disappoint you. It's just that I need to explain the way and method of summoning to you. Xia Yu smiled and recited the summoning words she had just calculated, allowing Xiao and I to operate them. Xiaoni chewed on those words and said in confusion. Is this really okay? Don't worry, players from another world can't wait to descend into this world. In the current world, within a group of penguins called Mowing Unmatched, suddenly a Xia administrator froze and directly posted a small advertisement. Immersive game with ultra-high degree of freedom and surreal experience, the god of the other realms now accepts free reservations. Come and join. This game has. When this news appeared, it also brought out the long-silent group members. Wow, I knew the sudden appearance of dog management wouldn't be a good thing. It's really pulling people's heads. I can't help but wonder if there really is such a game. Don't you want money? The IDs of various group members fluctuate up and down, and they are curiously discussing what the administrator of Xinxia said, but there are mostly doubts, with less belief. Virtual reality. And it can also be done in sleep. I've never heard of such a thing before. Okay. Even if news such as brain-computer interfaces frequently appears, they cannot believe it. Immediately after, the administrator of Xinxia sent a link to the official website, and the group members clicked in to take a look, which was really impressive. On the background image of the official website, there is a dilapidated temple with a March sky above its head and earth dragons churning, creating a fantastic online gaming style. The only strange thing is that there is currently only one appointment button on this official website, and there are no other entrances. A curious group of friends went in and immediately roast in the group. The group member with ID, Construction Site Carpenter, froze and immediately sneered. No way, this is just a fake official website with only one appointment button. Currently, the number of appointments is still 0, so it's not a scam, is it? The group leader, an instant light year, also followed roast. Very likely, don't click on unfamiliar links. I'm afraid the scam center will call me to remind me. With the questioning of two group members, there was a burst of discussion within the group, all discussing whether Xia was a scammer. But if it's a scammer, but at least he's also a manager, and he used to appear in the group as a game technology expert and didn't do anything out of bounds, how could this suddenly happen? Just as everyone was curious, Xia sent another message, swearing confidently. Please rest assured that this game is currently in beta testing and is completely free. You only need to provide us with a contact information and address so that we can send you a game helmet. Within 2 seconds of this message being sent out, the previous construction site carpenter immediately appeared and raised the bar. Oh, what about the game helmet? Is this kind of ancient online novel setting still in use now? No matter whether you make an appointment or not, I won't make it anyway. Another member named the Knight spoke up but expressed the opposite opinion. Free. Me. I am a well-known free game member on Steam, and I won't miss this opportunity for free prostitution. I've clicked, made an appointment, everyone hurry up, I see there is still a limit on the number of players on this thing. I'll order one too, it won't cost anything anyway. The group members saw that someone had ordered an appointment, so they naturally wanted to give it a try. Anyway, it doesn't cost any money. After all, only the address and contact information are required, and there are no requirements such as filling out a bank card. What they didn't know was that Xia Yu, who was leaning against the underground altar in another plane at the moment, had a joyful smile on his face. Come on, my little players, you are the best laborers. No matter what kind of tree spirit or dragon, we are players who can grow infinitely and have infinite possibilities. The name of the fourth natural disaster is no joke. Chapter 2, Keep Alive. You are listening at novelfull.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 3, Difficult Tasks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After receiving the task, Xia Yu did not hesitate at all, even on the branches of the moon, he went up the mountain in the dark. The reason why he is so bold is also because he has grasped the temperament of these dog-headed people. Because the elderly in the village have long concluded that these dog-headed people are the laziest. As long as you're full, I'm too lazy to move a little longer. They only abducted a group of humans 3 days ago, and now is definitely the time to enjoy it. They must be on guard and surrender. After 2 hours of shuttling through the forest, the hazy outline of the watchtower under the moonlight is already very close. Climbing up to the tree closest to the watchtower in the north, Xia Yu managed to catch a clear view of the towering Doghead Man's watchtower amidst the shade of the treetops. The watchtower is not large and has a civil structure, with only 2 floors up and down. There is a tower entrance on the south side, and a small window on each of the northwest and north floors, making it impossible for people to enter. At the top, there is a stack of firewood piles, with braziers flashing around, ready to ignite and initiate signals at any time. Goblin and Doghead each shuttle back and forth to guard, with very tight defenses. These 2 creatures are the same and can be considered the most basic monster units in the fantasy world. When placed in other online games, they serve as unparalleled lawn mowers for players. But in this other world, the facts have been completely overturned. Doghead humans have strong reproductive abilities and are bloody and cruel. They will eat when encountering people, grab goods when encountering them, and not to mention seek revenge. They also have a chance to give birth to a special breed of Doghead priests, which can win over and bewitch more Doghead humans, posing a greater threat. According to Xia Yu's 3-year experience in this world, the 3 nearby villages, including Sauha village, and the Li family castle, the largest castle nearby, were all threatened by the group of dog-headed people in front of him. It is unknown how many people died under their claws. As for Goblin, it's even more nauseating and frightening. The kind born from an evil race, covered in lush green, although small and dwarf-like, with extremely fast speed, and able to rely on continuous devouring and breeding with other races to enhance oneself. It is said that there were monsters of the level of Goblin Centurion that appeared in this mountain forest before. However, with the presence of 100, it is enough to see its terror. Unfortunately, the above 2 monsters also like to mix up and act collaboratively. So at this moment, even though Xia Yu was extremely careful and there was still a distance between him and the watchtower, he was still too atmospheric to take a breath. 1, 2, 3. A total of 2 goblins, 4 dog-headed scouts, 1 dog-headed archer, 7 monsters, it's not easy to deal with. He counted the frail goblins who were less than half a person tall, as well as the dog-headed scouts who were of normal height but had gray fur on their heads, and his heart grew more and more frightened as he counted them. You should know that there is also a Doghead Man watchtower on the opposite mountain. If there is any movement here, the beacon will burn and the other side will immediately come to support. Including Xia Yu himself, only 11 people can participate in the battle, and the other 10 people don't even have weapons. This gap is really huge. It depends on what kind of surprises players can bring to themselves. He silently took off his linen shawl. Currently, apart from a rough beige linen undershirt, there was only one shawl that could write and draw maps. As for the paint, he used the leftover coal from burning. After briefly drawing the terrain of the watchtower, the location of the goblins, and the patrol trajectory, he descended from the treetops and turned to another mountain to paint. After spending 4 hours on the road, Xia Yu, who was panting heavily, finally arrived near the southern watchtower. This time he was forced to lean further. In the traditional impression, the deeper the night, the more drowsy the monster should be. However, Doghead and Goblin are both burrowing species that once lived in dark caves all year round. The darker the night environment, the more spirited they became. Xia Yu tied up his pants and crawled into a dense shrub near the watchtower, drawing another topographic map of the area. This time, due to being further away, he waited and observed for a long time before counting the number of monsters stationed here. 2 goblins, 4 dog-headed scouts, and no archers. After recording it, he needs to prepare to leave. After all, the sense of smell of a dog-headed person is not something to be fooled by, and they are also afraid to approach when they are at a disadvantage. But at this moment, a few mournful cries suddenly came from within the watchtower. The voice was exceptionally clear, and in an instant, it made Xia Yu's face turn pale. Those are the village women who went with them to Li Family Castle 3 days ago for trading. You don't need to think too much to know what will happen if they are caught in the watchtower at this moment. Green-skinned goblins, however, tirelessly engage in reproductive activities until a woman becomes pregnant. Human beings are indeed so tender, much more comfortable than those wild boars. Inside the watchtower, there are occasional common languages with distorted accents, just like the dog-headed man inside intentionally speaking to women. Xia Yu silently clenched his fists. Although these people were only nodding acquaintances with him, and some had only met for the first time today, as both humans, how could they see these monsters indiscriminately harm their fellow race? But now is not the time to show off. Exploring the terrain first before taking action is the most secure. Xia Yu continued to draw the map, and after confirming its accuracy, he flipped over and crawled out of the bushes, returning to the underground altar. This time, the sky has already brightened, and according to time, it is time to recruit players to go online. Even the fairy Xiaoni has been waiting for herself at the entrance of the altar. Your Majesty, everything is ready and your players are almost here. Xiaoni is still curious. Can they really surpass those real warriors? Little Ni, flapping her wings, blinked her round big eyes and made a confused voice. Because she had seen those so-called warriors who came with full confidence, wielding artifacts or abilities bestowed upon them by the gods, and gradually discovered the extreme cruelty of the world. In the end, their faith collapsed and they looked like walking corpses returning to this place of decline. Do these so-called players really have the confidence to challenge this world? Just as Xiaoni was lost in thought, the two of them had already reached the bottom of the statue. The stone bottle that the faceless statue was holding in both hands began to drip some kind of liquid. The liquid dripped into the pool and immediately transformed into a human figure, rapidly growing into an adult. With some peculiar force, it was lifted out of the pool and placed steadily in front of the two of them. These people are tall, short, fat, and thin, but the only thing they have in common is that their skin color is terrifyingly pale, indicating that they are not normal humans. 1 or 2. Why only 9? Xia Yu looked at the group of naked players with a slight frown, wondering if they had missed the summoning. At this moment, Xiaoni flew over and explained carefully. Your Excellency, Xiaoni knows what you are worried about, but Xiaoni can tell you that the summoning ceremony is absolutely right. The other person did not wear the helmet that was issued. Xia Yu nodded, understanding what had happened. It's common for someone to take a helmet but not go online for some reason, so we have to wait. As for the issue of distributing helmets in the current world, he has also learned about it, because only in this way can the fact of teleportation consciousness be concealed. Otherwise, if we really say it's magic, first, no one believes it, and second, no one dares to try it. But now there is another issue, which is the clothing of these 9 people. They are still naked, so it's impossible for players to run naked, right? While Xia Yu was pondering a solution, Xia Yu suddenly drew a hexagonal magic formation on her chest. After a flash of blue light, 9 sets of beige linen short-sleeved shorts landed by the water pool. Xiao and I rolled around in the air and cleverly flew to Xia Yu's side, shyly saying, "These are all things left by those brave warriors, and they can come in handy right now." Xia Yu's eyes lit up and he nodded in approval. "Very good, it was a great help." The little fairy heard this and was so excited that she even flapped her wings a little faster. At this moment, all 9 people lying on the floor were moving. This is... Someone struggled to speak in Chinese and got up. But when he saw this world, he was immediately confused, staring at a stone wall for a long time, and finally a sentence popped out. "Sleeping slot, this game is actually real." Chapter 4. Absolutely Real Games. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at the 9 white bodies in front of her, the shy and timid fairy Xia Yu couldn't help but jump and jump. She was already trembling with fear and hid in Xia Yu's fluffy hair, asking in horror, "Your Majesty, are the players you summoned so strange? They don't even like to wear clothes." After hearing these words, Xia Yu's expression also seemed a bit off. It seemed that the next time we had to separate the area near the pool and create several small rooms for the players to feel, and then force them to put on clothes before coming out. At this moment, he also cleared his throat and interrupted the 9 players, speaking frankly. "Summoned warriors, calm down. The hellish world is right in front of you, and we can't play anymore." As expected, just as the words fell, all 9 players turned their heads and looked at Xia Yu in surprise. Xia Yu followed their gaze and spoke again. "Now, please put on your clothes and stand here to receive the baptism of the gods." Upon hearing this, the players realized they were naked and put on their clothes, excitedly leaning towards them. Leaning aside, he couldn't resist praising. "I'll go. 3 days ago, I thought the advertisement was fake. When I received the package this morning, I was still puzzled. How could there be a game helmet? I didn't expect to actually enter this game after wearing it according to the instructions. Yeah, I also mean, this game is too realistic, isn't it? It's so realistic that there's no even a pinching interface." After selecting the attribute points, it took me to this world in a flash. I thought I was asleep. A player with the ID, One Leaf Nose Autumn, excitedly shared his joy with the players next to him, while another player with the ID, Today's Hot Bricks, also felt the same way and couldn't help but agree. These 2 people are both sturdy men, and the linen clothes on them look one size smaller. Several other players with different heights quickly gathered around his discussion and agreed. "Agree, this game is too magical, right? I feel like I'm really in this world. Whether it's auditory, visual, tactile, or olfactory, it's all exceptionally clear. I'll be good, can there really be a game company that can achieve this level?" The short boy with the ID of Live Salt King looked at his hands and said in disbelief, even pinching his face hard and grinning in pain. "Lying in bed, even the pain sensation is particularly real." The other players sneered at him when they saw him like this. "Good guy, he's a ruthless person." Others just pinch him to confirm if he's in their dreams. He might as well pinch himself. Watching the players perform, Xia Yu also chuckled in his heart. They really thought this was a game, but little did they know that it was a real world, a real existence. The only difference between them and Xia Yu is that players can go back when they stop playing, while Xia Yu has to play whether he wants or not. However, joking is not enough. We still have to do the right thing. As a former employee of the Human Resources Department, Xia Yu has seen many big leaders drawing pancakes for various people everywhere, deeply understanding the essence of their pancake making. That is to say, no matter how big the pancake is drawn, the most crucial thing is to make people believe that it is a pancake and can give people a hope that can be realized. This principle applies to players, which is to increase their sense of immersion, allowing them to immerse themselves in this world, believing that they are the savior of this world, and thus unleashing their subjective initiative. The combination of immersion and absolute realism is the core of packaging this otherworldly game for oneself. Warriors, welcome to this dilapidated world. I am the envoy who brought you here, named Xia Yu, and also the last envoy from the altar behind you. We humans were once the masters of this world. 500 years ago, we almost unified this entire continent, making this world a pure land for humanity. Unfortunately, the sky collapsed, the earth collapsed, and demons from other worlds descended on our world. They polluted our warriors, destroyed our civilization. Even our gods died in that battle. Now, only this last altar is left to continue the fire of our human civilization. Xia Yu followed the memory of the leaders and first told the story, then raised his voice at key points to highlight the key points. Finally, when he was defeated, he wore a slightly choked tone. After some operation, it really caught the attention of the 9 players present. As for these scripts, don't forget that the fairy Xiaoni is still hiding in the hair behind Xia Yu's head at this moment. All those words were told by her to Xia Yu, and they are basically facts widely circulated in this continent. What Xia Yu needs to do is just to process them and make them more immersive. However, to the fairy on the back of his head, these words are too false. And now, my warriors, you are the hope of this world. You need to take on the responsibility of saving this world and reshaping the glory of our human past. And the first task is to follow me to destroy the 2 dog-head watchtowers near the altar, which continue to threaten us and must be eradicated. After finishing the final lines, Xia Yu's mouth was a bit dry, but he still felt very uneasy in his heart. To be honest, he himself has no idea whether this rhetoric can intimidate the players. Xiaoni, the goblin hanging on the back of her head, was even more roast. Your Highness, even if these words were meant for the pups of the dog-head man, they would probably spit out the overnight breast milk and say, I don't believe it. Before she could finish speaking, she suddenly saw an unbelievable scene. After seeing the 9 bewildered players looking at each other, they suddenly held their heads high and spoke together. Explosive the dog-headed man, defend the altar. The grandeur of its voice caused the entire underground space to vibrate. The fairy Xiaoni widened her eyes and exclaimed in surprise. Oh! How could they really believe it? Even Xia Yu's eyebrows twitched wildly, and he felt an inexplicable sense of shame on his face. This was the first time he had said such a second-year high school sentence. However, upon hearing the whispers of the players, he immediately felt relieved. I only heard the robust player, today's hot work tiles, after finishing speaking, bow down and smile at the player next to him. Take a look, I'll just say it. In any RPG game like this, NPCs must have a liking setting, and as long as we follow his instructions, it can definitely increase their liking. Brother Brick, you're amazing. I just saw that NPC and he was stunned for a moment. He must have given him a little shock. Player, One Leaf Knows Autumn, couldn't help but agree, and both of them were pleased with their predictions. Upon seeing it, Xia Yu chuckled inwardly. This brick guy is also a talented person, so it's really surprising that he can fill in his own brain. Looking at his ID again, is it possible that he is also doing the same in reality to help his leaders solve problems? The unexpected smoothness of the situation suddenly brought several tasks to Xia Yu's attention. Daily tasks, the popularity of the altar is completely depleted. Please arrange for the warriors to build beds, repair their homes, and meet the living needs within the territory. The current progress is 0/9, reward, 3 divine envoy points, daily tasks, insufficient food reserves in the altar. Please arrange for the warriors to obtain 10 days of edible food to meet their survival needs, reward, 3 divine envoy points. The task flashed in front of Xia Yu like a barrage of bullets. After a little contemplation, he had an idea and cleared his throat before speaking. Warriors, I have heard your cry, which is a symbol of confidence and courage. However, no matter what kind of strong person, before launching an attack, they also need weapons and equipment, and more importantly, homes and fireplaces. The altar is currently empty, and you need to store food and build shelter. Now, follow me out of the altar to easily collect and obtain the necessary resources. Upon hearing this, the players cheered and followed Xia Yu's footsteps, walking out of this underground altar for the first time. As soon as they left the cave, the early morning scattered by the other world suddenly made them feel a trance. Chapter 5, This Light. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The radiance of this continent, when first seen, was truly awe-inspiring. I only watched as the early morning rising from the east pierced through the clouds and scattered all over the earth, yet formed a deep blue color between the mountains, particularly mysterious and peculiar. The entire sky looks like a masterpiece by a master painter, with clear layers and extraordinary mystery. And in the eyes of players, these are truly amazing. The grass bear, who had never spoken, stared at the sky and the earth, listening to the roar of birds and beasts in his ears. His face froze, and his eyes widened, almost speechless. Oh my goodness, the lighting and rendering are almost the same as real. When I was playing Lao Gun 5, I couldn't even achieve this effect by playing D&D, it's simply amazing. Xia Yu turned his head and glanced at him, realizing that he had a relatively lean physique. Overall, his appearance was more pleasing to the eye compared to others, which was quite strange. Perhaps a player who pays extra attention to character appearance. Unlike the grizzly bear, who was amazed by the surrounding scenery and more like an exploration player, One Leaf Nose Autumn frowned and asked hesitantly. Lord Suture. I would like to ask you a bold question. There is nothing inside the altar, and there is also a wasteland outside. How can we obtain logging tools such as axes to repair our homes and store food? This question really hit the nail on the head and immediately caught the attention of many players around. If you want to get rich, first climb a tree. These are the basic gameplay of hardcore survival games, and everyone is very familiar with them. But after they arrived at the game Alien God, they realized that their thoughts were still too simple. This is too hardcore, isn't it? At the beginning, there wasn't even an axe, couldn't it be that you had to empty-handed sweep the tree? Upon hearing this, Xia Yu revealed the plan he had planned last night. Warriors, don't worry. Last night, I explored the surroundings and found a dog-headed man ambushing the scene just 1 kilometer away. The useful things there have been taken away, but there is still a part of them that has been preserved. We can go and try our luck. The ambush scene mentioned in this statement is where Xia Yu was ambushed. If he remembers correctly, most of those dog-headed people are interested in food, women, and livestock. Generally, men and resistors will kill and abandon them. At that time, in addition to Xia Yu, there were 2 adult males in the team, and other women also held defensive weapons to some extent. If they could obtain them, the start of the game would be much smoother. After hearing these words, the players naturally followed closely behind Xia Yu, afraid of falling behind. Just kidding, this beginner is guiding the NPC, obviously taking them to pick up equipment and brush monsters. How could they miss it? In their eyes, this is just a beginner's tutorial. 10 people immediately set off with a ferry, tiptoeing through the trees and arriving at the nearest branch of the commercial road nearby. Recently, the activities of good people have been frequent, and many caravans have been forced to give up the main road and instead take these branch actions. Unexpectedly, these small villages scattered like stars on the commercial road have flourished, and Sauha village, where Xia Yu is located, is one of them. After walking on the mountain road for about 10 minutes, the light suddenly lit up in front of Xia Yu. He immediately raised his hand and signaled the players to pause, asking them to squat down before finally approaching the edge of the grass and peering towards the mainland. Just looking at this 3-way intersection, there are traces of combat everywhere. Various filthy blood stains scattered around the main road, even though it had been 3 days, they remained unchanged and no one had touched them. Xia Yu was both happy and angry. I'm glad that the battlefield is well preserved, and I can definitely find a lot of good things. And the anger, of course, is that the guard team in Sauha village is also too disgusting. Even if they are missing for 3 days, they don't know whether to come out and find or support. Is this because they are afraid they won't be able to survive? But no matter what, touching the body early is the most important. Xia Yu licked his lips, which had become dry due to rushing, and pressed down excitedly. Divide into 2 groups, one group to clean up the battlefield, and the other group to guard nearby and be careful of the dog-headed man sneak attack. Although excited, he also knew that this place was too close to the dog-headed person, and the other person was likely to find him. Moreover, these beasts also know tactics. Often, novice adventurers underestimate these low-level monsters but are killed, leading to the downfall of the entire team. Even the female members of the team are tormented, and stories have been passed down. But this question has caused players to become conflicted. A group that touches equipment will definitely bring great benefits, and those who look forward to it will inevitably suffer losses. If there is no reasonable allocation mechanism, who is willing to fall behind at the beginning? Who's willing to go for a break? I'm not going. I'm not going either. But what if we all go to touch the bodies and get ambushed? Several players were struggling to discuss, and Xia Yu also realized this issue. Although players have unlimited potential, they need a reasonable framework to unleash their potential. In times of poverty, all benefits belong to the collective and are then fairly distributed by the collective, which is the best choice. Xia Yu immediately interrupted the players' entanglement and pretended to be serious. We are all warriors selected by the gods and adults. We should unite sincerely and overcome difficulties. All weapons or other items found by everyone should be handed in before collective distribution. Of course, if someone submits more, they can have the right to choose first. As soon as this statement was made, the players calmed down and rubbed their hands, waiting for the end. Xia Yu nodded, satisfied with the players' reaction, and immediately assigned 2 of the strongest players, Iezhichio and Brick Lord, to guard. He then led the other 7 people to the crossroads. As soon as they walked out of the grass, the morning breeze blew, making several people somewhat alert. But fortunately, apart from the strong smell of decay, there are no other monsters here. Everyone deftly unloaded the broken carriage and searched for useful things in the wreckage. 20 minutes later, the players gathered excitedly, displaying what they needed. I found an axe. The master has 2 chopping knives, hee. Wow, you're lucky. I only have 2 iron wheels here, which should be used for wheels. Unexpectedly, they were dismantled by someone. The players chattered and were overly curious about everything around them. And Xia Yu himself, relying on the remaining memories of that day, found a corpse lying on the north side of the crossroads near the grass when they came. He couldn't forget that day, when this old man showed great power and knocked over 2 dog-headed men, buying everyone some reaction time. However, in the end, he was outnumbered and killed by a chaotic knife. Old Han, although we have a friendship by chance, you also saved me that day and gave me time to react. If there is a chance, I will definitely help you. Xia Yu silently took away a hoe from his hand. The iron tool above the hoe had been thrown somewhere, leaving only the shaft tightly clenched in his palm. As for the other party's body, Xia Yu plans to drag it away and bury it in another place. If buried here, according to the beliefs of humans in this realm, it would be a great punishment, and one would not be able to rest after death, suffering from the crushing of chariots and horses from all directions. Just as everyone was happily collecting supplies and preparing to expand their territory, the fairy Xiaoni, who had been hiding by Xia Yu's earlobe, suddenly spoke up in fear. Your Excellency, it's not good. It seems that something is approaching. What? Xia Yu was startled for a moment. He was already very careful, how could he still expose it? Normally, the entrance where the altar is located and the nearby small half of the valley are very hidden. It is a perfect hiding place that can avoid the eyeliner of the two towers. How could anyone find it? Almost in the next second, another player lifted his head and spoke to the crowd. Shoo, everyone's hiding. It seems something's wrong. The player with the ID name, forgetting writing with a pen, suddenly spoke up and said from behind. His perception is outstanding, and his reaction is also fast. Not only is he faster than everyone present to issue warnings, but even the two full-force players on top of his head are one step slower than them. Shah, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. Chapter 6, First Encounter. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The grass was cut open by 3 bright curved knives, allowing Chuchen to expose them to the air. And their owner, the 3 dog-headed scouts, leaped out at the same time, looking at this battlefield of ruins with confusion. Sniff. It's really strange. Just now they smelled an unusual smell, why can't they even see anything now? The dog-headed scouts muttered to each other and then dispersed in a fan-shaped pattern, searching forward. This 3-way intersection is a good place for them to ambush human caravans. Especially the 2 tall mounds of soil here, as well as the dense grass around them, are all good places to conceal one's figure. It is already autumn, and many plants have withered, otherwise even the line of sight would be affected. 3 dog-headed people slowly explore, very careful. They won't make the same reckless mistakes as beginners and humans, let alone the dog-headed humans, whose super high sense of smell is a powerful tool for detection. Unfortunately, those goblin lazybones tend to be lazy and sleep during the day, otherwise they could have a super high perception vanguard to detect enemies. Just as they were walking out of the grass for only 10 steps, the dog-headed man suddenly noticed something. His sticky nose leaned forward to smell it, took a few sniffs, and suddenly showed his fangs. He clenched his homemade spear in his hand and growled some strange language in a low voice. The other 2 immediately reacted and roared forward. What kind of person, come out? The dog-headed man roared in common language, clearly discovering the enemy's hiding place. The other party also seemed to have no scruples, and Shiran walked out of his hiding place. He was thin and weak, never wearing armor, and only holding a ridiculous one in his hand dagger. The 3 dog-headed people looked intently and began to sneer. A weak human, just right. The meat that was plundered here that day has already been eaten. It's time to stock up now, which will also help us improve our food on the way. Xia Yu sneered and responded with a common language that he had studied hard for a long time. I am the one who should purchase the goods. Arrogant. The leading dog-headed person rushed toward Xia Yu, barking and about to give him a fierce thrust. When the 2 sides were at war, a worried voice came in Xia Yu's ear. Your Majesty, if you take risks with your own body like this, will players not care about you? Many brave warriors don't have the courage, and there are also many who run away. Don't worry. With Xiaoni's doubts in mind, Xia Yu stood in place without any fear, waiting for the opponent to attack. Because he knows that by procrastinating on his own, players should also be able to exercise properly. As expected, just as the other person thought they had scared the human in front of them and was about to stab the long spear into their chest, 2 figures rushed out from both sides of the grass. The player Yejichio and the player Brick Hot Hand each rushed forward with a chopping stick knife, roaring. There was no trace of fear on that face, it was all filled with immense excitement. Xia Yu seized the opportunity and immediately rushed forward, turning sideways against the opponent's long spear and grabbing the barrel with his backhand. This was originally an extremely risky move, but who would have thought there were too many of them? With such a delay, the 2 players had already deceived themselves and approached, chasing and chopping with 2 chopping knives, which frightened the dog-headed man into throwing away his long spear and fleeing backwards. The other dog-headed people who raided the formation did not expect this to happen again. When they were about to come up with weapons to respond, several figures rushed out around the grass. The remaining 7 players are already in motion, each with fierce eyes staring at the 2 people in front of them. Sleeping slot, this monster model is also built too well. Is this a dog-headed person? They are indeed dog-headed people, but they also resemble the style of black mythology. These dog-headed people are overall grayish-white, with various blood stains on their nails, giving them a bit of a wild and fantastical flavor. I'm talking about you guys, why are you still staring? Let's go together, take the first kill, take the experience. These players are also very interesting. They surround the enemy without attacking, but instead surround two dog-headed people in the center and criticize them up and down. This can confuse the dog-headed people because they feel that the scene seems familiar. When they once wanted to eat their enemies, they also surrounded them like this, discussing which part to cook from the beginning. This time, they couldn't help but sweat profusely. Strange thing, I haven't heard of such a ferocious human tribe nearby. Unable to bear their thoughts, nearby players suddenly rushed forward, wielding axes or firewood knives. That dog-headed person is also fierce, with a long spear piercing left and right, which should have scared these humans back frequently. But at this moment, it saw a scene that particularly frightened him. His long spear clearly thrust forward, piercing a human palm, and a large amount of blood gushed out, causing the person to feel pain and retreat long ago. What scares it is that humans not only don't retreat, but also dare to continue moving forward, and their mouths are even more excited with strange cries. Surprisingly, there is really a sense of drama pain. It's just that it's not very realistic, and I don't feel too much pain here. Hee, the first kill is mine. The live Salt King, who was stabbed in the palm and even had his arm pierced by the gun, rushed forward with a cruel smile, while the other hand held the tip of a broken porcelain bowl and fiercely stabbed the dog-headed man's neck. The bloody assault, fearless of life and death, made the always savage dog-headed man scream when he saw it. Ancestors, what kind of monster is this? Puzzy. With one arm apart, the living Salt King plunged a sharp dagger into the neck of the dog-head man. Dog-head people are a foreign race, not a divine race. The main artery was punctured, and blood immediately flowed all over the ground. Before long, it had collapsed to the ground, becoming a corpse. Another dog-headed person, upon seeing this scene, was filled with both liver and gallbladder. They had been crossing the spine and mountains for many years, and had never seen such a strange human before. They immediately thought of running away. Unfortunately, what players are? They are those who have seen their heads rise even higher, and with a complete charge, they are not willing to let them go. I heard several howls of dogs, and the excited players dragged 3 corpses to Xia Yu's face. Your Excellency, all 3 monsters have been killed. The players shouted excitedly, their faces turning red, like children returning home victorious to show off. Seeing such a record, the fairy Xiao's little mouth was so surprised that it couldn't close. These people seem so weak, how come they change their appearance when they encounter enemies? Xia Yu was also greatly surprised when he saw it. Good guy, he really didn't expect these players to be so fierce. 3 dog-headed people turned into corpses in the blink of an eye. You should know that during the raid, there were only 4 dog-headed people present, which could scare their small team of more than 10 people to death and break them down one by one. The huge gap between the 2 sides is unimaginable. Just at the beginning, a player hung the lottery, and the situation seems very serious. What should we do? Xia Yu looked at the player who was hanging the lottery, the live Salt King, with a melancholy expression. Unexpectedly, he had not noticed that the pale red dagger in his hand, at some point, emitted 3 faint rays of light, sucking on the essence of the corpse in a corner that everyone had overlooked. Realizing that his gaze was focused, the living Salt King scratched his head and said awkwardly. Cough cough, I was too excited about this game just now, so I didn't think too much about it. I shouted and rushed up. What should I do now? The player who was the first to remind everyone just now, forget to write with a pen, touched his chin and asked. Can't you feel the pain? Or have you awakened some special talent? Pain. Yes, it's just not very obvious. Although I was pierced through my arm, I only felt a little pain, at most a little higher than the needle puncture pain. This is impossible. Ordinary people who have been pierced in the arm must be so painful that they can't lift their arms at this moment, but I think you can still fight back. This does not conform to the setting of real games. Oh, I understand. It must be because the game company considered that we cannot accept such high pain in our dreams, so they blocked a part of it for us. I tried my best to analyze my handwriting and provided a fairly explanatory answer. When others heard it, they also thought it was true. What Brother T-Bai said is that if according to the setting of this game, we only came to this world in a dream, then the pain in the dream cannot be too high, otherwise it will stimulate us to end the dream and force us to exit the game. In this way, it also makes sense. A group of players nodded one after another, all agreeing with this viewpoint, all showing joy for discovering the uniqueness of the game. Xia Yu beside her chuckled inwardly, but on the surface, she pretended not to understand their words and continued to remain serious. He was worried about how to explain this series of problems, but he didn't expect these players to have figured it out for him. These players are so considerate. Then he'll just copy this explanation as it is. After all, collecting player feedback and making improvements is also a part that game companies should do. Only the living Salt King felt more and more uncomfortable at this moment, holding his left hand and saying bitterly. Don't analyze it, help me figure out how to treat me. I have seen the mandatory exit sign flashing in front of me several times now. If I don't bandage it again, I might die. Xia Yu also reacted and secretly asked the little fairy hiding behind his head. Xiaoni, can you still use the light green light screen you used for me before? Can you also help him treat it? No way, Lord Suture. Healing is an extremely rare magic in the world that consumes a lot of energy. Xiaoni has already exhausted her previous strength and cannot reproduce the miracle cast on you. Hey, shouldn't the healing techniques of the other world be very popular? Lord Suture, what you said only exists in fantasy. It's normal for people to die if they are killed, okay? Even the belief points in the altar are actually reshaping a person's physical body, rather than resurrecting them. So, what should we do now? After a conversation, Xia Yu didn't even realize that the situation would be so serious. If he had known, he wouldn't have let the players charge so fiercely. Isn't it necessary to waste faith points at the beginning to reshape the physical body of this player? Chapter 7, It's Broken. I became the commander of Spring Water. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Faced with the inquiry, the fairy Xiaoni still gave her reliable answer. After a moment of contemplation, she spoke up. Let the player take out the gun head first, find a way to disinfect and prevent evil from entering the body, and then wrap it up. The warriors' bodies are shaped by the main god and have stronger recovery ability, maybe they can heal on their own. Xia Yu's eyes lit up and he immediately cleared his throat, saying seriously. That injured warrior, please come forward quickly. Your injury is serious and needs to be dealt with quickly. Oh, here we go. The live Salt King was named and walked forward excitedly, without any signs of being injured. After a moment of contemplation, Xia Yu took out the flint he had always kept in his arms and lit a fire here. Then, using a burnt dagger, the injured person's clothing was lifted open, and after cleaning the contaminated blood, the gun head and rod were forcefully pulled out. Despite the blood pouring in and making others tremble with fear, the live Salt King still smiled foolishly, looking very playful. Next, Xia Yu used the already red-hot iron plate to burn and stick the wound of the living Salt King tightly, and tightly sealed the wound. This was originally an extremely painful and risky thing, and even a slight mistake could cause death on the spot. Although it can stop bleeding, the burns and new complications it brings are also big troubles. But right now they don't have any medication, so they can only come up with this solution. After the treatment was over, without waiting for Xia Yu to inquire, the living Salt King expressed his feelings. It's so amazing. Although it should be extremely painful, I don't feel much now. It's really amazing. But I've clearly weakened a lot, and I have several debuffs on my body, so I shouldn't be able to fight anymore. After speaking, he looked sincerely at Xia Yu and said in opinion that even Pinyin enthusiasts couldn't bear to listen to. Dear. My name is Xia Yu, and I am also the messenger of this temple. Oh. Xia Shinsher, please do me a favor and give me a healing technique to replenish my blood. Please provoke me. Watching a rough man act coquettishly towards him, Xia Yu felt a chill. Are players nowadays so weird? He quickly waved his hand to interrupt the other party's imagination and repeated Xiaoni's words. There are healing techniques in this world, but they are extremely rare and consume a lot. I don't even know how to do so. Additionally, I advise everyone that life is precious, and even if you die, the Lord God will need 3 days to reshape your physical body. Therefore, please cherish yourself. Ah. Upon hearing these words, the live Salt King's eyes widened in disbelief. How could there be such a setting? Death once takes 3 days to resurrect. Others were also surprised, thinking that this world could be resurrected infinitely, but they didn't expect such restrictions. At this moment, Xia Yu also became serious. He stood up and looked at each player, saying, Yes, my warriors. Our divine power is weak and cannot be squandered by us. Currently, all we can do is resurrect every player once. Once the number of times is used up, the world will be completely destroyed. When this fact was revealed, many players had a hint of surprise on their faces, except for the player who forgot to write with a pen. Xia Yu gave him a curious glance, perhaps the other party had guessed earlier. When they realized that pain was also an extremely important part of the game, everyone lifted the live Salt King to one side and lay down, thinking about how to help him. At this point, someone also went to drag over the bodies of the dog-headed people and handed over the 3 large packages they were carrying on their backs. Your Excellency, this was found on the corpse of the dog-headed man. Take a look. Oh. Xia Yu took an unexpected look and opened the package, his surprised expression growing stronger. Because this package is nothing else, it is full of dry meat. Of course, the dried meat here is not human breast, but pure deer meat. As for why Xia Yu was able to separate, it was entirely because this was the commodity that Sauha village was robbed of on that day. In fact, for dog-headed people, raw meat is generally a consumable. After all, they do not have the process of smoking dried meat, and sometimes can only make a pile of meat white and rotten. So I heard from the elderly in the village that dog-headed people are still very valuable for things like dried meat. After all, this is also a necessary material for traveling far away. But now finding them from these 3 dog-headed people makes things a bit playful. Are these 3 dog-headed people not patrolling nearby, but have some purpose and need to go on a long trip? Various doubts emerged from Xia Yu's mind, causing him some confusion. Do doghead people still have tribes to contact? Aren't they an extremely exclusive race that only relies on their own strength to dominate one side? Or, in other words, what they are looking for is not other dog-headed people, but other exotic races. Various doubts flashed through my mind, but were all thrown out by Xia Yu. No matter what the purpose of these dog-headed people is, now this batch of supplies has been of great help to Xia Yu. He is worried that his altar has no food at all, and he doesn't even know how to pass lunch. Carrying the food, we will return to the vicinity of the altar. As for these corpses, it would be best to bury them. Xia Yu continued to give orders. At this moment, he noticed a slight sense of disappointment on the faces of these players. He immediately realized that the battle had ended and even the loot had been cleared. It was time to reward the players. No one will do something without any reward, even a saint. It is still acting for a goal. But Xia Yu now only has this little trophy, not even a Norton copper coin on his body, and he doesn't know how to reward everyone. At this moment, he suddenly thought of some game tricks and elusive contribution points. Cough cough, everyone did a good job in this encounter. In theory, the altar should reward everyone with something, but unfortunately, we are currently in dire straits and can only reward everyone with contributions. Contribution points. Yes, contribution points were born to record how much people have built for the altar. Currently, contribution points can be used to purchase faith points and reshape the body. With more accumulation in the future, they can also be used to distinguish themselves from other warriors and serve as a symbol of identity. Xia Yu paused and said quite seriously. For those who have made outstanding contributions, the altar will not forget you. In the future, it may shape sculptures for everyone to admire, and unlock certain things to enjoy the convenience brought by the altar. As soon as this statement was made, players who have been wandering in the more unmatched group for a long time immediately understood the significance of this contribution. Isn't it the prestige system of most RPG online games, similar to some fantasy gang tribute? As expected, everyone's eyes lit up instantly, looking even more eagerly at Xia Yu. In this encounter, the living Salt King killed a dog-headed man and suffered serious injuries. He was rewarded with 30 contribution points, but I must remind everyone not to do such things again. Once you die, you will have to deduct 500 contribution points. If the contribution points are not enough, you will have to work for the altar until it is replenished. As for players who assist from the sidelines, they will receive a reward of 10 contribution points. Players who turn in packages will receive an additional reward of 5 contribution points. Xia Yu waved his hand and sent out the empty check, which indeed caused everyone a burst of joy. Those players who missed the package by mistake are naturally very frustrated, while the players who picked up the package have long laughed and couldn't close their mouths. At present, although there are only 9 players, in Xia Yu's opinion, this level of excitement is no less than some niche games. Next, the players quickly cleaned the battlefield and covered up the fire before following Xia Yu back to the altar. As soon as he returned, Xia Yu heard the sound of the system coming from his ear. Daily tasks, food reserve completed, reward 3 divine envoy points, special reward, during the land reclamation stage, as you have received an additional 3 times the amount of food, which can provide residents with 3 days of living, an additional reward of 1 point will be given. Your envoy points have been reached, you can pray in the dark pool now. Dark pool. Upon hearing this word, Xia Yu's eyes suddenly lit up, wondering what it was. But there is still a daily task that has not been completed at the moment, and he cannot get rid of it. He suppressed this idea and instead focused on guiding players to collect wood, preparing to divide the underground altar into several spaces. After all, no one wants to resurrect from the pool without any cover. Even if male players don't care, female players will definitely mind. Does any girl know how to play such hardcore games in a different world? At this point, all 9 players have the opportunity to showcase their skills. On their trip, they harvested 5 axes, for chopping knives, 3 spears, and a short dagger. The latter 2 are temporarily stored in underground shrines, while the front can each be used to collect wood. As for whether logging here will be discovered by the dog-headed people, Xia Yu has also considered it. The entrance and exit of the altar are located at the foot of one watchtower, while the blind spot of the other watchtower is not only the valley floor, but also covered by dense vegetation, giving it a taste of a paradise. The concealment is good, otherwise it would have been found by unknown travelers long ago. Secondly, he has no intention of hiding it all the time. At the latest, tomorrow, he will take the players to carry the Doghead Sentry Tower, otherwise he will have difficulty sleeping and eating. So it doesn't matter if we chop some wood today. And now Xia Yu happens to have some empty slots, so he can return to the altar and see what the so-called points and dark star pool are. Before long, the statue of the faceless deity appeared before my eyes. On the sculpture that has never left a trace of time, there is a faint blue light flashing at this moment, as if waiting for him. Chapter 8. The ultimate suture of the other world. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Looking at the statue bathed in the sunlight from the courtyard, Xia Yu was somewhat surprised. Although this was a different world, he had never seen such a miracle before, and his heart was naturally shaken for the first time. At this moment, a voice rang out in his mind. Do you want to consume 10 divine envoy points and activate the dark star pool? Yes. Xia Yu firmly said. He has nothing now, and he is particularly eager for any resources. As his words disappeared into the air, the statue trembled slightly. With a halo rising, a faint light flashed from the position that should have been the mouth of the statue. A light ball calmly stopped in front of Xia Yu, as if there was something inside the statue. Xia Yu nodded lightly and the thing fell into his palm. This is. He looked at the things in his hand, his eyes full of surprise. That is a talisman seal made of unknown animal skin, no longer than a palm and no wider than 3 fingers. However, the patterns painted on the paper make Xia Yu's mind ripple. Isn't this the Fujuan of my time? The Fujuan head, Fudan and Fuwei are exactly the same as those drawn by Uncle Ing. It's just that the color has faded a lot. At this moment, a voice rang out in his mind, introducing himself. Golden Light Talisman, a first-order talisman that can withstand a certain amount of damage, equivalent to a basic magic shield, can be triggered automatically without the need for spiritual or magical injection. Listening to the introduction, Xia Yu's mouth twitched. This other world, the stitching is really thorough. When he saw the reward for annihilating the watchtower, he had doubts in his heart. Notes of chi refining cultivators and notes of magic apprentices. This is clearly something from 2 worlds, okay. But now that another talisman that only appears in the Eastern cultivation world has appeared, he has to pay attention to this issue. Is it possible that there are both mages and cultivators in this world? Otherwise, how should he explain everything that appears before him? After careful analysis, he was also relieved. In the online novels he used to read, he also saw the encounter of transcendent beings from both Eastern and Western civilizations. The condensation, foundation building, alchemy formation, baby formation, and transformation of a cultivator are just a series of levels corresponding to magic apprentices, mages, great mages, forbidden mages, and magical gods. The main road is simple, but different paths lead to the same goal. In addition, the human beings in this world are constantly persecuted and encroached upon. Currently, it is rumored that only the Western Duchy of Norton and the Eastern Xiang, 2 major human countries, still exist and are gradually retreating. In the past 50 years, even their seaports have been annexed, and they have lost contact with the human countries in the northern archipelago. Human beings have been pushed to the brink of extinction, and there is nothing to talk about. As long as it has the power to defeat the enemy, any spell is fine. Xia Yu solemnly put away the golden light talisman and hid it in his pocket, intending to make it into a necklace at the right time and hang it around his neck, in order to be foolproof. After all, if a player dies, they can still rely on their faith points to resurrect, but if they die themselves, they are truly dead. Xiaoni has already confirmed this. Thinking of the point of faith, Xia Yu frowned again. Is there no way to supplement this belief point? In future warfare, there will inevitably be damage. Currently, there are almost no medical conditions here at the altar, and resurrection is inevitable. Without supplementation, the difficulty would be too great. While Xia Yu was pondering like this, he suddenly realized that the blue light on the statue was not dimmed by the end of the point consumption, but rather brighter by a few points. Xia Yu lowered his head to see that his bloodthirsty dagger, which was pinned around his waist, was emitting a faint blue halo. Is this a soul? Xia Yu recognized the halo, and through them, he could see the shadow of the dog-headed man being drawn away. At the same time, Xiaoni's voice also came to her ears. That's right, Lord Suture. After killing enemies, you and your warriors can use special weapons to extract each other's souls to supplement their faith points. Alternatively, you can expand your territory, recruit more residents, and make them believe in our gods, or increase your faith points. However, compared to one-time extraction, residents with long-term beliefs provide fewer belief points, but as long as the quantity is sufficient, it is a continuous source of belief resources. Even I can restore a lot of strength. Xiao's words exuded more vitality than usual, and she probably enjoyed it as well. Xia Yu nodded. Whether it was this world or this altar, there were too many secrets waiting for him to uncover. In fact, he doesn't even know the name of the deity he serves. But it doesn't matter, no matter who it is, if we can keep him alive now, that's it. Future matters, let's talk about the future. He has always had such a temperament. The two doubts were resolved, and Xia Yu's free time had already ended. He suddenly realized that time had moved from noon to the afternoon, approaching dusk. The players have been working all afternoon, and it's time to be hungry. So he simply set up a bonfire in the altar and used an iron pot picked up from the wreckage to cook a large pot of hot soup. As expected, half an hour later, 9 players dragged 2 large trees and many vegetation towards the underground altar. Your Highness, do you think these are enough? We're really exhausted. The leading player is naturally the most enthusiastic and extroverted, One Leaf knows Autumn. This man, who looks rough and wild like an uncle, is now wet in his shirt and his hair is covered in sawdust, looking very disheveled. Other players are more or less similar to him. Xia Yu nodded and exclaimed in admiration. Everyone, thank you for your hard work. First, put the wood aside and come over to have a bowl of meat soup. Then, let's continue building the residence. Okay, there's something to eat. The player cheered and rushed over with a quick step, intending to grab a bowl of broth. However, as he approached, he was somewhat stunned. Xia Yu was a bit confused and asked with a frown. What's wrong with you? Why isn't there a one-click eating button? When eating, you naturally have to sit down and eat with your mouth. Trying to resist roast, Xia Yu smiled. This child really thought it was in the game. However, this sentence surprised others even more when they heard it. The player exclaimed in surprise and forgot to write. I don't know, but this game even has a cooking and eating system in place. I thought today's collection, combat, and reward systems were all perfect, but I didn't expect there to be this part. Xia Yu continued to suppress his laughter, ignoring the player's fuss. He used the broken tiles and bowl pieces he picked up to serve everyone a bowl of meat soup. He also cut some straight branches into 2 sections and used them as chopsticks for everyone to use. It has to be said that the chopsticks of our ancestors are simple and easy to use, and can be easily obtained anywhere. Although they are simple, they are clean and have more etiquette. The road is as simple as ever. And as most players were given meat soup and put the batter into their mouths, they all made various surprised sounds. Oh my goodness, I actually tasted the taste and drank soup in the game. This feeling, this smell, Mom, what kind of technology can do it? The 2 players, Yi Ji Chio and Chao Zi Big Grizzly Bear, drank soup and sighed, even moving to the point of crying together. On the side, who always seemed to be rational and analytical, he also nodded and commented while eating. Perhaps it's the feeling that gaming helmets give us the electrical signals in our brains, but anyway, everything we experience today is a groundbreaking technology. If we promote it on a large scale in the future, it will definitely cause a sensation. It's the taste of this broth, so bland. In theory, bacon shouldn't be so bland, without salt. Xia Yu chuckled a bit after listening to the first half of the sentence, but as soon as the second half came out, he couldn't laugh anymore. Salt, this is also a big problem. Due to being located in the mountains and inland, salt has always been a scarce commodity. Taking Tsaohe village as an example, everyone eats very rough and impure salt, which is bitter and astringent, and even has no salt taste. That's it. You have to be frugal when eating normally. Some families are even more nervous, and can only turn salt into pickled vegetables for men who do heavy work at home to eat, while others can only eat dry rice. Many people suffer from severe swelling. As for the bacon jerky, it's even more economical. I'm afraid I'll put a little more. This is also a big problem that must be solved in the future. Chapter 9, Explosive Group Messages. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. After finishing the broth, night had fallen. Worms chirped and wolves howled incessantly, emitting a dangerous smell everywhere on the surface of the earth. Only by living deep underground can one attain a moment of peace. The entrance to the underground altar has been sealed by players with wood and grass as a warning and cover. A fire has been raised in the center of the altar, illuminating the space here. As for the issue of air and smoke, there is no need to worry. Through the natural vertical shaft above the statue, one can naturally scatter into the sky. Over such a long distance, the smoke has long been dispersed. Once safe, players begin to unleash their DIY skills. Some were more hasty, so they stacked the grass and simply lay it down. However, this type of thing will cry and howl soon because there are various insects in the grass, which can be annoying and can't sleep well. For those who understand a little, they might as well sleep on a large piece of wood and rest on a pile of grass. When everyone's beds were almost done, the living Salt King, who had been observing silently, jumped out of the corner and showed everyone the standard beds for survival in the wilderness with a light smile. He laid 2 pieces of wood flat on the floor, sorted them one by one with similar wooden poles, forming a hollow wooden pole bed. Then, he laid pine needles and dry moss on the back, and a simple and unadorned grass bed appeared. This kind of bed can not only be off the ground to avoid moisture, but also keep warm and provide a higher level of comfort. I'll go, why didn't you tell us earlier about such a good bed? It's too comfortable, isn't it? The player immediately noticed something unusual on this side when the brick was hot, and immediately leaned in, constantly looking up and down at the bed. His voice also attracted the others, each looking surprised on this side. The live Salt King clapped his hands and finished work, making a mischievous move of picking his hair, and said with a smile. You didn't ask. You guys with thick eyebrows and big eyes, be careful not to cooperate with you next time. Don't. Hee, I'll teach you how to do it. I usually stay in the wilderness and make this kind of shack when I have nothing to do. I have a lot of experience. Feeling so comforted, Brick Lord finally relaxed his arms and pulled the living Salt King to build a shack. Other players quickly followed suit and finally settled in their accommodation before midnight. Xia Yu just smiled as he watched them make a fuss. After confirming the completion of daily tasks and the receipt of the Divine Envoy's points, he nodded in satisfaction. At this moment, the players exclaimed in surprise, somewhat confused. We've played long enough today, it's time to go offline. But where's our exit button? Why isn't it? I'll go, won't I be stuck in this game like a sword? Brother, don't talk nonsense, I'm afraid. Just as they were at a loss, Xia Yu interrupted them and gave them a reassuring pill. Don't worry, rest early, you will know everything. Upon hearing this, the players immediately understood the game and climbed onto the grass bed to rest. Before long, everyone's breathing calmed down, and Xia Yu could clearly feel that the players had disconnected from the other world. At the same time, in the unparalleled group of lawn mowers in the current world, the group chat that had been dormant overnight suddenly exploded. I'll go. Brothers, come out quickly. Do you remember the game appointment that Xingxia management expert sent us 3 days ago? It was actually real, we really played that game. Group member, Yi appeared on time, first sending a bomb explosion emoji, and then fiercely throwing this sentence into the group. As it was in the morning and there were fewer passers-by, the second one who had played the game, Slim Immortal, replied. Indeed, I can testify. After getting started playing last night, I was truly amazed. Not only was I able to play in my dreams, but what was even more enjoyable was that after waking up, I felt like I had enough rest, and both my body and mind had returned to an excellent state. Me too, today's bricks won't be too hot, you can move a few pieces hard. Today, the floor tiles were hot. I followed closely and enthusiastically shared the kind of experience I had while playing. The light and shadow effects and modeling effects inside are all first-class, except for some unique vegetation that I have never seen before. Most importantly, almost any object in the line of sight can interact freely, not just a texture in other survival games. Whether it's climbing up and down, or picking up weapons for combat, they are all in a super free state. To be honest, the energy of this game company is really enormous to achieve such a large amount of game volume at Xia Yu. Please stop peeping at the screen and come out to share a wave of information with us. With his call, other members were also frantically calling out to Xia, seeking more news. As for Xia Yu himself, he must be peeping at the screen. After all, he has to honestly turn this place into a game under development in a different world. Otherwise, it is not good to cause other unnecessary impacts. Looking at the increasingly neat Xia Yu, who was in a different world, relying on the magic in Xiaoni's hand, entered the voice input. Hi everyone, I am Xia, the developer of The Gods of the Other Realms. I have already looked at the trial data of the first batch of players, and they are all very good. Everyone is working hard, thank you. As for the issues you are concerned about, I can briefly explain them here, but if there are any technical issues, I won't mention them too much. And with his appearance, the group with just over a dozen people online became incredibly lively in an instant. Due to the fact that the link was only posted in the Moer Wushuan group, the first batch of 10 players who went online quickly appeared, pouring out their doubts. The development is great, and this game is also amazing. How did all of this come about? Upstairs, didn't they all say that we can't discuss technical issues? Sigh, the plan is big, and I just want to ask, will we delete the file when we reach the official version of this trial? Various strange questions quickly emerged, and some of them left Xia confused. Baturu from Miao Sauce's family asked directly. The planning is huge, and the character modeling here is a bit mediocre. Except for the novice guide who looks a bit more pleasing to the eye, the other players' appearances are simply unbearable. Can we create some more beautiful characters in the future, especially the cat girl? We must have them. When it comes to color, the group becomes even more lively, with various expressions of kawaii constantly appearing, driven uncontrollably. But discerning people can tell that these people didn't get to the point, at least many questions were not solved. At this moment, while silently recording in the game and steadily playing outside the game, Forget writing with a pen sent out a long paragraph, asking questions. Hello developer, does this game have a level system? The player's combat style can only be physical melee. Why don't we feel too much pain? Can't we reduce the resurrection time? Also, can we increase the face kneading section and the number of points that can be allocated at the beginning? Upon seeing this series of questions, Xia Yu did not have any aversion, but instead felt a sense of relief. Finally, he came up with the idea, which was also what he wanted to ask Xiaoni. Xiaoni, can you create a visual panel for the brave and me? Is there a level of strength in this world? At this moment, Xiaoni was flying in mid-air, with a dark green halo flashing around her, like a firefly in the night sky. After a moment of contemplation, she answered positively. Yes, Lord Shincher. After speaking, she cast her magic once again, drawing a hexagonal pattern in front of her with her hand, and then chanted some spells, releasing baskets of silver-white crystals. With a crash, they scattered all over the ground. Xia Yu's eyelids twitched at the sight. Those things looked very precious, but this little girl was really willing. At this moment, he picked up one of them and curiously looked around, realizing that there was an incomprehensible symbol inside these crystals. Just as he was about to ask, Xiaoni spoke up. Your Excellency, please try to concentrate your mind on it and take a look. Okay. Xia Yu nodded and focused his attention on it. After a moment, a property panel appeared in front of him. the personal panel is as follows. Level LV2, Standard Level LV3 for ordinary adult humans, Strength. 5. Note, the benchmark panel for ordinary adult males is 4, Spirit Root/Inspiration. 5. Agility. 4. Perception. 4. Charm. 7. Due to your favor with the goddess and fairy Xia Yu, your charm has increased by an additional 2 points. Current weapon, Bloodthirsty Dagger, obtained by recruiting new players as rewards. It can absorb soul and blood, and stack its own attack power at present. The first level Golden Light Talisman. Note that talismans do not have a clear distinction between upper and lower levels and can only be distinguished by eyesight, can resist a certain level of damage, equivalent to a basic magic shield. Current ability, None. After reading it, Xia Yu's eyes suddenly lit up. With this thing, it would be much more convenient. Xiao and I continued to explain at this moment. It is called a medium crystal, which can be said to be a must-have for warriors. This is also common knowledge in this world and is not considered precious. However, there can be a lot of magic that can be applied on it, not limited to inner vision. Xia Yu nodded satisfied and couldn't help but praise. Xiao and I is really a good helper. If it weren't for me having nothing now, I would really want to treat you well. Oh. Don't say so straightforwardly. As long as you recreate the glory of the altar well, I will naturally receive rewards. Xiaoni was extremely shy, and her round and chubby face suddenly became particularly rosy. She quickly crawled into Xia Yu's hair and hid it. Xia Yu shook his head, organized his words, and patiently answered Yi Ji Qiu's question. Chapter 10, Letters from the Heroes of the Previous Generation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Regarding the inquiry from the student who forgot to write on their pen, our company is also holding an emergency meeting internally. It is expected that the character attribute panel function will be launched. Although our original intention was to design an unlimited degree of freedom game, it may not be good for the gaming experience now. Secondly, regarding combat, there is greater freedom in this area. In the future, besides physical attacks and remote attacks, there will also be magical attacks, so please rest assured. As for the Resurrection CD issue, currently due to technical issues, it cannot be solved. After each player dies, it takes 3 days to reshape their physical body, so everyone needs to be careful. Finally, regarding the issue of pinching the face. When Xia Yu said this, he paused for a moment. He thought for a moment and realized that he was pleasing to the players because his charm value had increased by an additional 2 points. By analogy, if players have high charm, will they also look good? He then incorporated this speculation into his writing. I can briefly reveal this, it should be related to adding points, and the specific gameplay still needs to be explored by everyone themselves. The message was sent out, and the group message started flashing again without any surprises. The 9 players were all starving for these news and eager to obtain more information. But they are lively, and there are others watching in the group of about 100 people. The construction site carpenter appeared immediately and was the first to question. Hush, don't the group owners care about it? This group is full of advertisements and fake content, constantly playing games that don't exist. It's endless. In a blink of an eye. The group leader, in a blink of an eye, activated the entire group ban and spoke up. Although I don't pay much attention to everyone's comments, what you're saying is too mysterious. If it weren't for the high level of the 10 or so of you in the group, forget your words would still be the leader of the strategy area. I really want to kick you. Everyone, wait a moment, I'll confirm the accuracy of the message. Due to the ban, the group message instantly froze and could only wait for the group leader to confirm. A few minutes later, the entire group was unblocked, and the group leader, Flash of Lightyear, immediately spoke up, somewhat surprised. Can't you really create such an awesome game? How come the 9 of you have such a unified caliber? The most important thing is that you don't have any pictures or truth. Immediately speak up and argue in the group. You know me, group leader. I never make such jokes. The 9 of us went online today, not only engaged in battles, but also completed super high degree of freedom construction. It can be said that the game was incredibly realistic. One leaf knows autumn, and players who have played games such as the Slam Immortal all agree with the saying of forgetting to write with a pen. But the construction site carpenter didn't want to see it at all. After sending a disdainful emoji, he sneered. Oh my god, oh my god. This kind of game can't exist at all. You're still playing games in your dreams. Dream it. Anyway, I don't care about you guys. I won't make appointments or play, otherwise I'll write my name upside down. In a blink of an eye, he spoke again, as if he had carefully considered his words. At present, the credibility looks very high, but there are still too few people trying it out. I think it will only be proven true when there is a large-scale public beta. So, Xia Yu, send me a qualification to play. As soon as this statement was made, the others in the group panicked instantly. Done, the group leader has fallen. Looking at this string of news, Xia Yu smiled and returned to the official website he founded. This was also done with Xiaoni's help and a little method of learning on her own, although it was very simple. Currently there is only one option to make an appointment. And the originally 0 number of reservations also increased to 15 people in just a few minutes of discussion. I believe others are also curious about this game. But the group member who has been singing the opposite tune also reminded Xia Yu that increasing the number of appointments is not a good thing. If the quality of players cannot be guaranteed, it may even have adverse effects. Later on, it's okay to say that once the system is improved, 1 or 2 troublemakers can be quickly dealt with. But now, he must carefully select players, preferably those who are helpful for construction and have a certain willingness to cooperate as a team. You should know that even casual sandbox survival games like Famine can easily become popular if you don't pay attention. Taking note of these thoughts one by one, Xia Yu had Xiao Niu's magic and planned to find a place to deal with them overnight. What he didn't expect was that the players were really awesome. They only had 9 people, but they made 10 beds, and the last one was clearly made for themselves. Xia Yu's heart warmed, and after lying down, he couldn't help but recall his experience of playing games. He is also an old internet worm, playing both new and old games, but the gaming experiences of the wild era still shine. At this moment, he had a feeling of reliving his old travels. Perhaps it is this selfless mutual assistance that was the initial joy of playing games. Dreams flooded in, but a voice rang out from the dream. Hello, latecomers. Don't ask too much, keep moving forward. The road may be bumpy, but there are also unexpected surprises. These 2 sentences repeated repeatedly, and Xia Yu was trapped in a dream but difficult to wake up. It wasn't until dawn that he opened his eyes somewhat bewildered. What was the sound from last night? Xia Yu's memory of last night was dull, and his head was even more painful. At the same time, he could also feel a warm current surging in his body, as if his strength had increased slightly. When he took out the medium crystal and looked, he found that his power attribute had indeed increased a bit, and his level had also been raised from LV2 to LV3. Is this the unexpected joy? Xia Yu shook his head and threw away his distractions. He had to prepare for attacking 2 watchtowers. While the player is not online, you need to prepare before engaging in battle. As the extinguished fire rose again and the broth began to cook, Xia Yu took out his hand-drawn map and began to contemplate countermeasures. If you want to quickly capture these 2 watchtowers without letting them light a beacon, you have to rely on one move. That is to approach early and charge up before the battle begins. Xia Yu muttered to himself, having already planned the strategy in his heart. At the same time, he didn't forget to upgrade his weapon on his hand. Although the bloodthirsty dagger is good and has a stacking effect similar to the bloodthirsty sword, it is short and dangerous every inch. In order for this dagger to exert its maximum power, it needs to be upgraded to a long weapon. Coincidentally, those three wandering dog-headed people were holding long spears. Its head is tied and fixed with the tendons of certain animals. You only need to dismantle it and tie the bloodthirsty dagger on it, even upgrading it to a bloodthirsty spear. Of course, this is not stable, and it is best to use iron tools or similar tools to create a specialized card slot in the later stage, to card the bloodthirsty dagger in the position of the gun head. At this moment, with the halo of the goddess statue flashing, the 9 loyal players went online again. Ah! Playing this game and then playing other games feels like chewing wax. I can finally go online, this day is suffocating me. As soon as the 2 players, Live Salt King and Brick, appeared, they immediately let out a sigh of relief. Xia Yu knocked on the old iron pot and shouted to them. The food is ready, and after finishing our meal, we need to find a way to take down those 2 watchtowers that threaten our survival. Upon hearing this, the players immediately gathered around, each holding a bowl of broken tiles and happily eating it again. How comfortable. I just finished a big bowl of rice and now I can eat it again. It's really 2 pleasures in a day. This player is different from others. He takes the broth and still cares about the progress of the game. Your Excellency, why don't we attack at night and choose day instead? It's better to attack at night, isn't it? Facing the inquiry, Xia Yu answered truthfully. I understand your concerns, warrior. But what you don't know is that the dog-head man is an underground race with poor eyesight and becomes even more blind when there is plenty of light, relying solely on their sense of smell. Although goblins, who are associated with them, don't have this problem, they are monsters that appear at night and are extremely sleepy during the day. It's time to attack. Upon hearing this, everyone suddenly realized. They quickly finished their broth, picked up their belongings, and prepared to set off. However, Xia Yu stopped them and took out his own map, explaining. Due to the 2 watchtowers echoing each other, if we cannot end the battle in a short period of time and successfully prevent the beacon from igniting, it will attract more support from the doghead. To achieve this goal, I need everyone to divide into 3 teams and cooperate with each other to attack. As soon as the players listened, a word came to their minds. We're going to form a team. Yesterday was just an appetizer for a battle, and now this is the real main dish. Xia Yu paused for a moment, digested it for everyone, and then continued speaking. I won't interfere with how to allocate personnel, there are only 3 main attack directions that you need to choose from. The first team needs to take on the task of attracting attention, requiring a frontal feint attack on the watchtower, but not causing too much alertness from the doghead. The second team needs to cooperate with the third team to launch a flank attack and clear the opportunity to flank the watchtower in a very short time. The third team, relying on vines and other ropes, forcefully climbed to the top floor and defended the beacon tower, waiting for other players to surround the doghead inside the tower. At present, it is only the beginning. Players can fail, but they cannot accept failure. Therefore, the first team battle must be commanded by themselves and everything must be taken care of. Of course, Xia Yu will not forget yesterday's summary and begin to draw a pie path. As for rewards, they are calculated as team rewards. Once successful, all rewards contribute 100 points, and the spoils are given priority by the first to climb, slay the general, and seize the flag. The person who completes the 3 tasks first will choose, and the rest will be distributed uniformly. As expected, when the players heard this, their eyes lit up and they quickly formed teams.